Welcome to the Rise and Flow podcast with me, your host, Elaine, a 5-1 manifester and the goddess of fun. This is a space where we go deep into unlocking your magic so you can step into your power in your life and business. Tune in weekly with me and a host of expansive guests where we dive deep into areas such as energetics, spirituality, and business so you can rise and flow. Hello, welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have a first in the studio. We have two amazing men, a 3-person interview, a father and son duo tuning in from California. And we are here to talk today about the guys' mission on raising humanity's consciousness, but it's actually combining manifestation with AI. So I want to introduce you first to Tommy, who is the CEO and founder of SUPERconscious, and also was an ex-basketball player, now turned into a manifestation AI developer. And then his dad, Tom McCarthy, who is the author of The Breakthrough Code and also has the podcast called The Breakthrough Code. He's the #1 high impact performance coach in the States. Lots of amazing experience as well to bring to us today to talk about this amazing new app. So guys, I'll let you introduce yourselves first, actually. Who are you guys outside of SUPERconscious, first of all? We're going to play a game today on the podcast and let you guys decide what human design do both of the guys have and what is their profiles, which I'm going to put in the polls down beneath. So guys, take the floor. Tommy, I'll let you kick off.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having us, Elaine. I'm Tommy McCarthy. I'm the co-founder, CEO of SUPERconscious, born and raised in San Diego, California, but live up in Los Angeles now. Started this company about 1.5 years ago, and we just launched our app last week. So super excited about that. Yeah, outside of that, I grew up playing basketball, played in college. That was a huge part of my life. And then got into finance a little bit, and then had always had an interest in manifestation, spirituality, obviously taking some from my dad, and had the vision for this project a couple years ago, and we're finally starting to see it come to fruition now. So super excited for this conversation.
Amazing. Delighted to have you here. And Tommy, you led the way into entrepreneurship for your fabulous family. Tell us all about you.
I grew up in a family where my dad passed away when I was 3. He was an Army officer, was killed in the Vietnam War. So my life, and I was 3, I had a 2-year-old brother and I had a little 6-month-old brother at the time. So my mom, I think, was maybe 28 years old, and now all of a sudden a single parent. Life became not ordinary. You know, it wasn't black and white anymore. It was very gray. And so I decided, I don't know at what age, but I wanted to figure life out. It didn't make sense to me. The old conventional way you think of life wasn't the life that I had. And so I was very motivated to think beyond think outside the box, go beyond the lines. And so I would read books when I was young that other people weren't even reading, right? And they were books that were things like, I can remember reading Wayne Dyer's Erroneous Zones, and most people don't even know these books because they're from a long, long time ago, or Illusions, but these books were talking about thinking beyond your current circumstances and being able to create a life beyond what would be typical if you just continued on the path that you were on. And that excited me. And when I would learn these things, I would want to share them with other people. And I didn't know that was going to be my career, but that's what I ended up doing in my life. I had some different things I did along the way. So I was very motivated, started lots of businesses when I was young. We didn't have any money, so I was trying to bring money in, help my mom out. And then out of college, I took a path into finance because I thought, okay, this would allow me, just for the money, really, honestly. Wasn't something I was super passionate about, but I wanted to make some money and help my mom out. And then I realized I didn't really love that. And I ran into a guy, Tony Robbins, who many people probably know. And I ended up moving from where I was living on the East Coast of the US to California to help run his company, which I did that for about 3 years. And then I started my own business. And I didn't want to do what I was doing with Tony because he's a good friend. I didn't want to compete with him. And this is a long time ago. And so I stepped into the corporate realm, working with companies like Cisco Systems and Zoom and Microsoft and Salesforce. a lot of tech companies, Wells Fargo Bank. So that became kind of what I did. And I was known for teaching people how to perform at their peak and in situations, whatever role they were in. Also, I wrote some books on presentations. How do you communicate more effectively? And then the last book I wrote was The Breakthrough Code, which did quite well and was how do you create a breakthrough in your life? How do you go to the next level? And in that book, I talked about the superconscious mind, the part of your mind that really does not have limitations and does not live just in your body. And that became the name that Tommy decided to give the app in our company now.
Amazing. And on this, like for anyone here that listens to this show, obviously knows what subconscious mind is because we talk about this on many episodes. But even in your walks of life, I mean, I used to be a huge Tony Robbins fan when I was in corporate back in the day. Like, I mean, he was the first kind of people in the kind of personal development space that kind of, I suppose, challenged the world on this. And then, but like, it's taken years, like in this space for the subconscious to actually be something that's really been talked about. You know, we've all tried so many different frameworks and read The Secret. When you were saying that, like, I was the exact same. I had all the old school traditional books on like the soul's purpose and manifestation all here. But it's like, it's only now that people are starting to talk about the subconscious mind. So Tommy, you were saying, well, maybe first of all, explain a little bit of one that it's running 95% of the show is our subconscious mind. But what was your personal amazing genius breakthrough that you had using ChatGPT on understanding your subconscious? Like, what were you facing yourself that led through this amazing creative idea?
Yeah, so I mean, I had always been interested in and kind of had known about it, just obviously growing up in that environment where my dad's a personal development coach and mom's a yoga teacher. So kind of had always been around that environment. And I feel really lucky to have grown up with some of that knowledge. And around like the end of 2022, when ChatGPT kind of first came out and was getting popular, I started to just dump my life and my thoughts into it, as I think a lot of people are now starting to do. But what I really wanted to do was to use it to create kind of these new scripts for my life, to start to retrain that subconscious mind in that 95% of my life that I knew was kind of controlling all of my thoughts, decisions, and outcomes in life. And so I would essentially go through the different areas of my life, you know, my finances, my career, my relationships, my lifestyle, and just think about, you know, what do I want to create within each of these areas of my life, and use GPT to kind of talk about, okay, here's where I am right now. Here is kind of my dream reality. What do I want to create? What if I could create anything? What would I want my life to look like? And I would have ChatGPT kind of create these little scripts for myself. And I would take those scripts and read them out loud, record it just on voice memos on my phone, and then put a little background track behind it and start to just listen to those every morning as I woke up, and then at night before I fell asleep, in those 5 minutes before I fell asleep. And started to see a huge change just in the way that I thought, the way that I acted. My habits started to change, and I started to see, you know, different outcomes come into my life. And the more I thought about it and the more I started to use it, I realized that this could be a scalable product for people, something that we could leverage these new technologies coming out to create something where this could be automatic for people and create like a great user experience, user interface in a daily path for people that makes this just seamless. So that's kind of how I came up with the original idea for SuperConscious. At the time, I was working still in finance, doing some consulting. I was actually interviewing for a private equity job at a pretty prestigious firm, and was like thinking about going back into that path. But I just had this feeling that, you know, I had to bring this technology to the world. I felt like an inner calling and just so much emotion behind it. And I remember there was one morning in specific where I was in the final round interview at this private equity firm, and you know, it was a really great opportunity, something that would have been you know, an awesome path to go down, and had started my career in that realm. But I just had this feeling that, you know, this was something I had to do. And I used to go shoot hoops at a local gym, and one morning I'm in there just by myself, shooting around, and I just became overcome with emotion to the point where it brought me to tears. I'm like, I have to do this. And I made a decision. And it's funny because I got back to my house that morning and was walking my dog, and I get a call from the recruiter at the private equity fund telling me that I had got the job, but I was going to have to move to Houston and, work under the founder there. And, it was a great opportunity. And on the phone, I just made the decision. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I want to, take this path of starting this company. And at the time, like, we didn't have anything set up. I had put a little deck together, sent it to my dad, but we didn't have a business. We hadn't, started the company. We didn't have our partners. But it's funny, like after I think I made that decision with such conviction, things just started to come into place. And, our other co-founder, Chang Ron, came in, and, we made plans for this retreat that we were hosting, and things just started to come together. And to now, see where we're at now, a year and a half later, and that decision, I'm just so happy that I made that. And now we're, really impacting people's lives, to see all the different people who have now used the technology that we've been able to make a real impact on is really amazing to see. And I think it really started with that decision and that trust in the unknown, and just, knowing that, if I go down this path, that things will start to come together without really having to see exactly how or when it was going to happen.
Amazing. And the key thing you said there, right? It's the conviction. When we
Hmm.
decide, like, I hate being in that void phase, which I've talked about a lot collectively in 2025, when everyone's like, where am I? What's my next evolution? Where am I going? But then when you get clear, it is like, and you have tools like this, it's like, let's fucking go. But
Yeah.
for you, how did your own tool become your medicine, right? And celebrating you I was just going to, I was going to let it filter. I was like, I'm celebrating you for having the balls for just going out. It's a real Irish colloquial expression. It's just like, yes, I'm forget the traditional career in finance, etc., which is what most of us followed.
Right.
And I know what it feels like having done that. I think I also, as I approached, when was it? 30, I think, as well. I stepped away from I was 33, bigger corporate role. I was like, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
And it's hard to walk away from momentum, which you both have done. Obviously, I mean, this is your first stick into entrepreneurship for 3 years. Tom, you've obviously reinvented yourself a gazillion times. And when we take the leap, as we know, right, we take the action, okay, I'm going to be the entrepreneur, or I'm going to
Yeah.
be the one who builds the number one manifestation AI app in the world, right? And that's the
Yeah.
statement. And then we can see this in our conscious mind. And then the subconscious comes into play and all the default programming. So can you give me an example of something that you kind of faced yourself personally, I suppose, that you were able to reprogram with the app?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it, like you talked about, the subconscious's main job is to keep us safe. And so a lot of times we make decisions based off of safety, and we set like a big goal or a big ambition. Like, for me, when I wanted to start this app and turn it into, like you said, the number one AI manifestation app in the world, it feels uncomfortable, right? It feels unsafe, and your subconscious will try and pull you back into that safety net, right?
Who
And
are you,
so
Tommy?
exactly. And so the second that you make, and this happens with everyone, the second that you make a big decision like that, or set a big goal or a big intention of something that you want to really create that seems far out of reach, that's when those subconscious programs would kind of try and pull you back of, how are you going to do this? You're not good enough, needing to see like the exact path on how to get there. And a lot of times that's when you just need to surrender and trust that, if I hold this vision in my mind, that things will start to come into play. I think a lot of times, if you look back on anything that you've accomplished in your life, you never knew the exact path of how you're going to get there. There's always some random person or opportunity or thing that you could have never expected that comes into play, that's a catalyst for you getting there, and you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So for me, it was just taking that leap of faith and stepping out of my comfort zone, and kind of saying, like, I'm going to make this happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know, what people are going to come in, what steps I need to take, but just taking that step into the unknown and trusting that, if I hold this vision with conviction, that the right things will come into place. And so for me, a big part of that was obviously using the superconscious activation. So once I made the intention of starting the business, my activations were around seeing it be this successful thing that's raising the consciousness of the world and seeing people using it and benefiting from it, investors coming in, our retreat going super well, and not knowing like exactly who the investors are going to be, what people are going to be involved, but just knowing that the right things will happen at the right time. And a lot of times too, it can be something that at first seems like a setback or something that seems like, is taking you away from that goal. That's actually a catalyst to getting you there, right? So it can be some, hardship, whatever it may be, something that goes wrong that then sets you up for meeting a person or thinking a different way, taking a different route that, takes you to your end goal. So I think that, the biggest thing for me was getting away from this idea that I need to know the exact step-by-step path on how it's going to get there, but rather just living in that end result and letting the rest just, kind of attract to me.
Yeah, one of the investors that actually came in was somebody Tommy met randomly at um, a,
Coffee
a
shop.
coffee shop, but like
Yeah.
a coffee shop one morning,
Yeah.
and she and her husband actually invested, and they're wonderful people. They were the owners of the largest mobile phone stores. They had many stores throughout all of Australia. They took it public, and Tommy met them one morning, and they became so.
Yeah, you never know how it's gonna. Yeah, I was just, there's a coffee shop near my house up here in West Hollywood that I would go to almost every morning. And one morning I was just sitting there. We had just put together our retreat. So when we first started the company, we hosted this retreat out in Costa Rica to kind of build an initial community around what we were building. This was actually before we started developing the app, and I was sitting there having breakfast, and at the table across from me, I hear, this husband and wife kind of talking about spirituality and manifestation. And I don't remember if, I chatted to them first or if they talked to me. But anyways, we got into this conversation. They invited me over to their table, and I mentioned to them that, I'm doing this retreat out in Costa Rica. It could be something that you're interested in. She ends up signing up for the retreat a couple days later. And then once we launched our pre-seed round for the app, a couple months after that, they then became our second largest investor. So
Yeah, and the
you
retreat
know,
was like $11,000. It wasn't like like a
right,
couple $100 you go to a retreat.
right. And so, yeah, you just never know what opportunities are around you. But I think once you start tuning into um, that desired result, you start to see these opportunities, right? Because they're always around us. It's just, what are
Mm.
you perceptive to when you train your subconscious that, that you have this intention that you're trying to create? All of a sudden, the world around you will start to show you these opportunities. And it's not like they weren't there before. It's just your mind wasn't trained to see them. And so I think that's such a big part of it. When you can retrain your subconscious for these intentions, you'll just start to see more things. It's like if you think about a red car or a certain type of car, now you start to see them everywhere. Whereas before, your mind just kind of filters them out. So I think that's a huge part of it as well.
I use red as my trigger color in my hypnosis tracks. So when people are coming
Hmm.
out of the recording, I'm like, red, red, the color red. It's proof that it's happening. Hence, I've
Hmm.
read everywhere in my brand colors as well that it's like show up with the confidence that like it is already in your field. It's just a matter of accessing and not sabotaging our success. And I'm sure, Tom, you've probably banged your head against the wall many times in your corporate coaching days when you've lined people up with the plan. Here's the strategy. Here's all lines up. And I definitely would have seen this hugely in business coaching. And this is why what brought me into the subconscious mind the past number of years. Hello, this is all like nails for success. Why did you fuck it up? And this is where I saw the significance of the subconscious mind. But onto this in terms of like, both of you for reinventing and leading the charge on this and the importance of like identity, the identity and the link of how that dictates the subconscious mind. For someone who's here, like, right, I'm done fucking around. I want to make 2026 my year. I want to lean into this new, well, it's not new, It's an innovative, fast solution using ancient and modern wisdom.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the identity and subconscious link? Interrupting this episode for a quick initiation. If you are listening to this and you're feeling the pull for more clarity, more alignment, more you, then this is your invitation. I have created the best of you for people who are done trying to fix themselves and they're ready to embody who they're here to be. Over 6 weeks, we work with your energy blueprint, nervous system regulation, breathwork, ritual, and hypnosis to clear old patterns and anchor a new identity that actually not only attracts, but holds the life you want. You don't walk away motivated, you walk away clear, aligned, regulated, and magnetic as fuck. If your body just said yes, you will find the link in the show notes.
Yeah. So identity is huge. And at the core of, we call it our subconscious mind, at the core of who we are, we identify ourselves as good at this, not good at that, already here in this area of my life, needing to work or fix myself in another area of life. And you perform and you create up to your identity, what you identify with, right? And you don't get what you want, you get what you are. And your identity is the way you think you are. Now, the thing about identity is that identity is not something that's set in stone. It's something that we choose at some level. And so we can shift our identity. And that's really what the app helps with. When you talk about coaching someone in the corporate world or anybody, I've coached Olympic gold medalists, all sorts of different people. The biggest thing that we work on is helping them shift their identity. So it's not just, because identity creates a lot of these subconscious patterns we're talking about, but identity is the big thing. I remember back in the day when I was working with Tony Robbins, helping him with his company, we would work with people that wanted to stop smoking, and some people would stop smoking, and they would stop smoking for a little while, and then they would start smoking again. Some people would stop smoking, they would never smoke again. Or people wanting to lose weight. Some people would lose weight and they would then gain it back. But some people would lose weight and they would continue with that same weight loss and healthier body and all that great stuff. But the difference was their identity. When somebody stopped smoking, if they still had the identity of, I'm a smoker, I really would enjoy another cigarette, but I'm going to stop smoking right now, and they were just using their willpower, eventually the identity would overpower the willpower. Same thing with losing weight. If they dieted and they lost weight but they're like, man, I really would love to eat a lot more, and this lifestyle sucks, and I don't like these healthy foods, they would shift back to their old identity. So we are not our bodies. We are not even our personalities. We are our beings that are choosing these identities. And I believe that we can shift the identity. And that's really what the app does. Now, it's hard for people to do on their own. That's why the app is so beautiful. It's hard for someone to maintain this new identity and really shift it at a deep level when 80% of the thoughts they're going to think in a day, typically with their subconscious mind, are critical or negative. And then 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. You got to have something. You got to have some sort of tool that kind of helps you. And that's what the app does. It creates these scripts that literally are creating a new identity, the identity that you want to have. By telling the AI that we've specially programmed, it's a really cool AI we've created, what you want, where you are, what do you think's stopping you, how would it feel if you were already there? The AI, and I think you've experienced it a little bit, Elaine, the AI creates these scripts that are then in your own voice. You can clone your own voice. So now it's you talking to you, saying that you're already there. Now we're using technology in a powerful way. When Tommy decided to do this company, I said, look, if we do AI, we've got to do it in a way that enhances humanity, that empowers them, because AI can also be used in ways that take us down, humanity, down a path that we don't want to go down. They can literally take our power away. And so I'm really proud of what we've done with this app, because it really is using technology in the most powerful way to empower us to shift our identity to change our subconscious mind. And not only that, to access this super conscious mind that we have that literally knows no boundaries. It's that mind that can create meetings like Tommy had, where this person became not only someone who came to our retreat, but now a significant investor and a really wonderful person that we really love and cherish having as part of our company. So, and he's got millions of stories, like not millions, but he's got tons of stories like that. He's working on a deal with Forbes, to help buy Forbes, where he was able to create something where, he got $200 million commitment literally out of nowhere, pretty much, to help with that deal. So, and also like a story where he had a large herniated disc, and doctors said the only thing left to do was operate because he was having a hard time walking, had hip pain, knee pain. And literally within 3 days, reprogrammed his mind where that pain went away. It's never come back again, even though maybe he has a herniated disc, he has no pain. So this is the kind of things we can do. We can change our health, we can change our wealth, we can change our relationships. And not that we're broken and fixed, but because we want to enjoy a different experience, not moving away from something. It's creating. You're either a victim that's just kind of struggling through life, or you're a creator. We want people to be creators.
Yes. I'm all here for the creators. I freaking love this. I feel I manifested you guys into my world. Like if I even think back of just in terms of the chief science officer you have on machine learning, because I was reading up on this. So when I was in college, I did a business degree 2005, 20 years ago. I've got great lighting here. But basically, I remember, obviously, I'm Aquarius rising, right? So like we are here for this time. This is why I was so excited to see that you guys had actually already built something like this, because my 5-1 self, which I bet, by the way, Tommy, you definitely have a 5 profile in there. I'm dying to hear what people say in the comments. But for me, I was always like super excited about technology when I started learning about this in college. Bear in mind, when I did university, social media was only becoming a thing. But one of my school projects I launched was sleep learning, and I pitched this to the university because I'd studied about like the chimpanzees learning Spanish and listening to it when they were sleeping. So I'd go write all my lectures out, the essays, and I'd record them in my sleep because I was too busy. I was having partying, I was going traveling. I had no interest in sitting down at a desk all day. I'm like, there must be a fucking faster way of doing this. So then obviously now, 20 years on, I'm doing the hypnosis tracks for people, but it's taking common like blocks around cells or whatever, and it's personalized to an extent of collective needs in niche topics. But again, right, I've been this whole 5-1 going, but where is the scalability? Yes, it can impact the hundreds of people that come into my business, but on a global level, since AI has come out, and I also started using it for pattern recognition, because I'm kind of going like, this is amazing at calling out your bullshit. And nobody, obviously I coach in this area. People are terrible about being honest with themselves. Your subconscious, when you go deeper into soul evolution, your identity is formed around your wounds. Everybody will avoid their wounds and shadow at all costs, unless you're like crazy people like us that are like obsessed with like digging in and turning the shadow into the gold. So it's like the combination of this work that you've done is amazing. And I'm glad you brought up the topic of like the skill side, I suppose, of AI. So like when all of this is being developed now from the ground up, because I'm like, technology should be improving human potential. We should not be getting more tired, more stressed, broke, more disconnected. Like this is where we've gone wrong. And I feel in this next wave of AI, it's great for founders like you guys to be leading with that, kind of going, right, here's the ethics. We can use this for good or not. So like, what's the kind of background story with that, with you and your CSO and all of you together?
Well, I think a big thing that I've noticed in this new AI revolution, and you see it so much, is I think with the emergence of AI, it's kind of separated people from themselves and their creativity in a lot of ways. If you look at LinkedIn or even a lot of social media stuff, a lot of stuff is starting to sound the same because you can tell people are just putting a vague prompt into ChatGPT, and like, everyone's stuff, you can tell immediately that, okay, they just used some ChatGPT prompt for this. So in a lot of ways, I think AI does separate us in many ways from our creativity and our authenticity. I think the interesting way that we're using AI is actually to connect you much more with yourself and your creativity, and using it as a tool to, think about what is it that I want to create, and also dig deeper, like you said, into, what is stopping me from creating this, digging into those limiting beliefs, that identity that we talk about, and really understanding yourself better rather than just outsourcing, creativity and my authenticity to this AI that's going to create some script that sounds, the same as everyone else's, but using it in a way that really helps you tap back into yourself. So almost using it as a mirror to say, here's what I want, here's what's been stopping me, and really allowing people to connect more with themselves. That's something that we've seen, in the beta tests that we did. We had some like in-person test groups, and, just small groups of 10 to 20 people, and kind of took them through the whole process of the app. It was so amazing to see, not only just seeing people's reactions to the end output of like hearing, their activations in their own voice, but even just in the onboarding process, to watch people go through this prompting process that we have, where basically we take them through in every, we got 7 different life areas, relationships, career, finances, consciousness, lifestyle, health, and vitality. But like entering into a life area that you really care about, let's say, your career, and thinking about, if I could create anything, if I was limitless, what would I want to create in this life area? And it's so amazing to see so many people have never really thought about, what is it that I truly want to create? Because we're so stuck in these boxes of what's realistic, what's been true for me in the past, this whole identity that you've built. But if you strip all that away and you just start from pure innocence and start from a blank sheet and think about, what is it that I would want to create? If I knew I could create anything, what is it that I want to create? Watching people just go through that initial process and actually see themselves in that light as this limitless being, it brought out this like really emotional part of people, because most people have never really thought about, okay, what is it that I truly want to create? And so I think like the whole onboarding process, while we're looking at ways to make it a lot more seamless right now, and make it easier for people to go through, because it does take time to really sit down and think about these things of, what's my desired reality? Where am I currently at? What are the limiting beliefs that are keeping me stuck? But to watch people go through that process was such a powerful thing, because it really helps you connect more with yourself and think about life in a way that maybe a lot of people have never really thought about, because they've been so stuck in this program of, what they believe to be realistic, what's going to keep them safe and comfortable. And so I think like the way that we're using AI is really connecting people more with themselves. And that's a really big part of what we're doing and trying to raise consciousness. And then obviously once you get the outputs of being able to listen to your activations and update them and hear it in your own voice is really, really powerful. So we've had like these unbelievable emotional reactions from people, where literally like it's, people will start tearing up and like having these amazing reactions. So that was like, when we were doing our testing, that was like the most encouraging thing, because to know that, it's having, even if it was just one person who had that reaction, like it's worth it, because to see that change and see someone think about themselves in a way that they've never thought about themselves was really powerful and encouraging for us to then continue to scale this out to the rest of the world.
So, Elaine, what Tommy was saying, though, like a lot of people, they just want to put in a couple words and have everything done for them. With this app, because humanity needs to engage with technology, with AI, not just like defer everything to it, especially in the areas of creating your life. Now, there's certain things that you will be able to defer, and it's like your assistant. But when you really talk about what you want to create, it takes a little time, and it takes you really thinking. And most people have never thought about, what I want my life to look like. They just go, I don't like the way it looks right now. And so people that use our app, they have to come in ready to put into our SUPERconscious engine, what do you really want this year, or this day, or this lifetime? What do you want? If you could have anything, what do you want? And we believe they can create anything. I don't really believe in limits. I believe that we have limits that we impose upon ourselves, because we block out most opportunities. But I think we're in a time now, especially now, where you mentioned New Earth, but where we're moving into a place where old limits will fall much easier, where we will create and manifest much faster. And the real skill is, what do you want? And can you change yourself from the inside so that the outside now can be more visible? Everybody wants the outside to change, and I'm going to stay the exact same way I am. That doesn't work. And that's what our app helps you to do, is shift from the inside so then your outside now becomes what you really, really want. And you can see it and believe it and feel it and make it happen much easier.
100%. I mean, as what you said earlier, like we are the creators of our own life. And when I've learned
Good
all
and
these,
bad. Good and bad. Not even we want to take the, oh yeah, I created that. Well, you also created this.
absolutely. And it's the same as you even said, Tommy, like, when shit doesn't go right, that's also happening for
Hmm.
us. Like,
Yeah.
even like I've taken aligned action that my authority and my human design has said yes, but then 6 months down the line, then it wasn't working anymore. But it did work for the period of time to get me to the next step. And this is where we
Yeah.
actually, the deeper work of tuning into alignment and frequency comes in. But I think it's understanding like one subconscious belief that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this used to hold me back. Like it was running in the program is like that change takes time. And I think it was maybe more so my traditional training. I worked in corporate, I obviously did change management for a period of time. You're managing a project and it's like, oh, let's allow this amount of time. And when you work with the subconscious, it's bullshit because you can change reality. Like I've seen people completely different in 21 days. And coming from a traditional marketing background, I'm like, how can I really get behind that? I need more proof. I need like more people. But obviously now like we've got so much global work and scientific studies on the subconscious mind now, and obviously hundreds of thousands of testimonials and people pioneering this.
Hmm.
You had actually said, I think it was in one of your interviews, Tom, and this is like, it's like change your reality in 5 minutes, like talking about even say emotions. And this is what I love about the deeper work in the app, right? Because you're doing the tracks, but also breath work as well. So it's bringing in the somatic practices, like genius. Like it's just everything about it is just so aligned. But can you talk a little about that actually on the emotional side, right? So what people get stuck in these loops, right? And oftentimes, if they don't have a coach or whatever, they're in the same loop that they probably could be in a 1 year cycle, a 2 year cycle, and nothing's freaking changing. And when you access this is why I'm like to people, you'll get frustrated when you realize how actual easy it is. But can you tell us, Tom, on this, on your learnings about processing the emotion? Because what people I notice is they tend to avoid feeling an emotion. Like if something comes up, like I want to be I want to launch my app and raise 1 million in investment money or whatever. And then, but deep down, I'm here going to go, no, but my last business failed and I feel shame over it. And
Yeah.
I avoid feeling the shame. So then it makes me do different actions. It dictates all of my actions, this one emotion.
Yeah.
And you have your genius breakthrough code on how to change that state in minutes.
Yeah. So emotions like shame, guilt, anger, they're they're not harmful emotions. If you feel them and let them move through you, they're gone, right? When we resist them, they stay in us and they literally like they hold on to energy. It's locked up energy that we don't have access to. Just like an old limiting belief or an old memory of something that we don't let move through us, like it locks up energy. And so now we don't have this energy to move forward, that once we free it up. And all you have to do is feel it. I used to be afraid of feeling angry, right? I'm a nice guy. I don't get angry. And that was something I had to learn because it stayed in my body. And someone said, you probably have a lot of anger. I've never felt angry in my life, right? Or, I have a couple times, but I had to start feeling that, letting it move through. And then that frees up the energy now to go into higher level frequencies. So these negative emotions, I'll call them negative, but lower frequency emotions are not the ones that manifest. The emotions that tend to manifest are more joy, love, happiness, freedom. These emotions we need to learn how to feel, but we also have to feel the other emotions and let them move through us so we let them go and they're not stuck within our bodies. One of the things Tommy learned about how to get rid of pain in his body was that the herniated disc was not causing the pain. It was trapped emotions that were using that herniated disc as like an excuse to feel pain. But once he realized he could feel these emotions he was feeling, being a perfectionist, maybe some anger, things like that, and let them go, his pain went away. And then he was able to up level his frequency to higher level emotions. One of the things we want to eventually have in the app is where you will be able to talk to the app and you can see the frequency that you're in and then be able to up level that frequency. And so we're not too far away from being able to do that. So the emotions that I think we need to feel more of, like even in the work you do, if you're going to work, and I used to be guilty of this, like, all right, I got to go work. I got to go earn my worthiness, right? And I would be, have like this tension, and I'm working, typing emails or whatever, doing a new training or whatever I was doing. And, I got through it and I did a good job, but it wasn't joyful. And it kind of started burning me out. And then I would walk by my wife, Tommy's mom, and I'd see her working and she'd be doing an email and she'd have a big smile on her face because she was enjoying like doing whatever she was doing. And I'm like, I got to be more like that. And now I do that. Like I'm at the point where I don't have to do anything, right? But I choose to do things and I choose to do them with joy and happiness and love. And it's a whole new experience and it's way better and it's way easier. I think the two biggest beliefs that stop us are I'm not worthy and I'm not enough. And I had both those. I didn't have a dad growing up. We didn't have any money. I wanted things to show that I was enough. And then I got the things and then I still felt like, okay, well, that felt good for a minute. Now I got to get the next thing to feel enough. And now I don't think that way anymore. It's literally liberating because I know I'm enough and I know the things don't make you feel enough, at least not for very long. And then worthiness, like I used to think, I got to work really, really hard to be successful. But then when I look at what really made me successful in business, it wasn't all the hard work. And I know this is going to shock some people.
Yes. I'm glad that you're
It was
saying that.
things just happening for me, right? When I was in alignment and relationships and things happening that literally were not hard work. Now, did I put some energy and effort in? Yes, but it was effective effort. It wasn't like foaming at the mouth, knocking people over, calling every single person I could call. It was really being in alignment. And so the hustle, the grind, I think hopefully we're moving away from that and people are going to be creating, especially using tools like our app, your hypnosis programs, but using tools that really help them just get in this flow of things that naturally come to you when you assume them to be true already. You have the right identity and you're in the flow and you're taking some effort, but it's like intuitive, aligned effort that just like, continues that flow a little bit quicker for you.
Yes. I'm like, is there any other way to create, like I do say this to my husband where I'm like, I did the corporate grind and the hustle and the right next
Yeah.
goal and then it's the next thing. And the same as you, like you get buzzed for a period of time and then
Yeah.
I just be like, oh, is this it? I'm earning more money, but I have less time. Like I feel like amazing every day knowing that I'm the dictator of my own schedule. Like no one could ever put a price tag on that for me. But now learning all these ways, I'm here going like, I feel the timelines I've collapsed in the past couple of years since like fully committing and devoting to this way of living. I'm like, what the fuck else is possible? Like
Yeah.
you have not even been realizing your potential. And I think I've lived about 10 lives before 40. So I'm like, okay, can you share one or two experiences from the transformations people had on the beta round for this? And just to give context to anyone, right? So when you download SUPERconscious AI, it's not like Calm or what are the other ones like Headspace or any of this kind of stuff. It is, technology and spirituality, like my top loves. And
Yeah.
it is basically completely personalized. So I put in, it's based on the Wheel of Life, which I thought was genius as well, by the way. So we can focus on each of the areas because, I've seen time and time again with clients, if they're hyper focusing on just finance and just maybe love this 1 year, then all the other areas of their life can come out of balance. It's important to have
Mhm.
goals across all, which I love.
Mhm.
And then I talk in about like how I'm feeling, what I want, and it's asking me questions and personalizing my own track and then giving me
Mhm.
breathwork practices. But it's also only, again, as we said, back to the speed of change, like 2 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the afternoon. It's not, I'm not dedicating 10 hours of my day to manifesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so just to kind of take you through it for anyone listening, the biggest separator for us between any of these, traditional mental health apps like the Calm or the Headspaces or these other ones that you've mentioned, those are all great tools for people, and tools that I had used previously, but what they are is really just access to a pre-recorded library of things. So you and I, who have completely different lives, subconscious programs, goals, dreams, are listening to the exact same thing. The difference with us, and what I think is so special about what we're building, is every single person who comes onto the app is having a completely unique experience that is hyper personalized and specified to their exact desires, their exact subconscious limitations, their current realities. And so everyone is having a very unique experience, and even being able to hear it in your own cloned voice. So we have a feature where you can clone your voice in 2 minutes. And the technology is incredible to where it like really does sound like you. It sounds like yourself talking to you. But yeah, so you have 7 different areas of your life that you kind of map out. What is my desired reality? What's my current reality? What would it feel like to be living my desired reality? And then what are some of the limiting beliefs that are getting in my way to reaching that desired reality? So it creates activations for each one of those life areas. And then you can prioritize like which are most important to you. So if right now my relationship and my career are most important to me, it'll create a daily path where those are prioritized. It'll have morning activations, midday, and evening. And it's, 5 minutes each time to just kind of get you back in that program along with breath work. And then we also create a holistic activation, which kind of brings everything together in a longer 10 to 15-minute activation. So that's kind of like your holy grail, life blueprint. And then you can always update it, right? So let's say you've reached your new desired reality, you want to set a new one. You can go and update it. It tracks your momentum. So we've gamified it with a momentum score to where the more that you use and interact with the app, you see your momentum go up and you can level up. And so we're building in all these things that really make it super easy for anyone who hops on there to create these activations, update them, give them a daily path to where you don't have to think about, okay, when do I have to use it? It'll notify you in the morning, midday, right before you go to sleep. So it's just super seamless and easy to use. And we're
Learning
continuing to
section
iterate.
too.
Right, and we have an entire, learn section to where we teach people about these concepts, a lot of the stuff we've talked about today around reprogramming the subconscious mind, accessing the superconscious mind, so a whole library of educational content that's really engaging as well. Um, and we're continuing to iterate. The great part about being live now and having, a multitude of users is we're getting all this great feedback and data around how people are using the app in ways to improve it. And so we've got an incredible development team who's iterating really quick, and we work with them every day. So that's been amazing. But Dad, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the just like
Yeah.
stories and results and testimonials that
Yeah.
we've gotten.
So I'll give you an example. So there was a young lady, 35-year-old, that I was coaching, and normally I coach very high level CEOs, CROs, so different people in tech companies. But this young lady, her mom, had met at a conference I was speaking at. She had bought my book, gave it to her daughter. And then her daughter reached out to me and asked if I would coach her. And she was really, I thought, talented young lady. And so I agreed to coach her. And she had gone to University of Virginia here, which is a very good school, was one of the top graduates, and got 2 master's degrees from Columbia University, an Ivy League school, got into consulting with a company by the name of Bain, which is one of
Yeah.
the most prestigious, largest, best consulting companies in the world, was a superstar there, ended up leaving Bain, starting her own little boutique consulting company, and moved from the US to Europe. She actually lives in Europe now. and was doing really well, created a startup. And the startup, she ended up raising some money for it, raised $1 million. But she did it in chunks of, let's say, $20,000, $25,000. So it was a lot of conversations to get to $1 million. And then she also was she was doing her own consulting, but then working in this startup that she had a CEO, but she was doing the business development and sales. And so her largest customer at the time was $20,000 a month recurring revenue. And that was their, their top customer. We created an activation for her. This was back in the beta. And because her issue was, even though she's so talented, she had a worthiness issue. Like when you're only getting, and again, it's not like a terrible worthiness. She raised $1 million, but she had to do it by grinding and hustling and talking to so many people and not stopping. She was building her company, was doing well, but she wasn't getting like big deals per se. She was getting, decent sized deal, like, that's $240,000 a year, but $20,000 a month. And so about a week after, it was a week or 10 days after she started listening to this each day, she got in touch with me and she said, "You never believe what happened." I said, "What?" She said, "I have an investor," because she wanted to raise another $1 million, right? And she thought she was going to have to go and talk to a ton of people and get another million. She goes, "I had an investor that approached me that wants to put $1.5 million into my company." And she goes, "I don't even need $1 million." I go, "Take $1.5 million," right? She goes, "I don't need $1 million. I'll take $1.5 million." And then she said, "I was on a call with a potential customer and I sold a $20,000 deal." She said, "But then something inside me said, you know what? Don't stop." Because that's normally where I would have stopped and hung up. "Thank you," because the worthiness issue. And she said, "I decided to just ask more questions and go deeper." She ended up selling a $200,000 a month, so 10x bigger than she had ever sold before. A $200,000 a month recurring revenue deal for that startup. And now, like, it's crazy. Like we were just talking a couple of weeks ago. Now, a company wants to buy her startup, and they're doing. They did like $3 million last year, but wants to buy her startup. And this is like, I can't say the name, but it's a massive like private equity company, like one of the biggest in the world, wants to buy it. And she's like, "How did this happen?" I said, when you start feeling more worthy, when you get rid of your unworthiness, all sorts of things happen. And guess what? She didn't even know she had a worthiness issue. Like, I didn't know I had a not good enough issue or not enough issue until I really started learning these things. And then because it's subconscious, it's below your consciousness. That's the challenge with the subconscious. We're not aware consciously what's down there until we really start to notice the patterns. And that's what our education does. It actually helps you start to know why this thing always keeps happening. And then once you know why it always keeps happening and you go to the core and you shift the identity, change the pattern, it doesn't keep happening if you don't want it to happen. Other things start to happen.
I love the story. I'm like celebrating that girl. I'm here, like, I'm motivated now going, I want to go and just raise $1 million just to show myself that I can. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for like a human
What?
design school or something.
Yeah.
And that's like so incredible to hear such subtle shifts. And I say this, and I'm interested actually for you, Tom, on the business side of this, like the need for spirituality and practices in business as we're seeing these shifts. I kind of would have left the corporate world when I would have left. Everyone was like, "Oh, Elaine, the corporate witch. She's gone off to India now to like do her thing." And at the time, everyone thought I was absolutely like batshit crazy. Like they were like, "You're leaving." I mean, this was 11 years ago now. So like, they're like, "You're leaving? Like, you're like at the peak of your career. Like, you've just launched successful telco in Myanmar. You're like there are job offers like flying in everywhere." And I'm like, no, it's not ready. Or
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not, this is not my path. I need to find this other way. But I can see now even beliefs I would have had of like, say that like, "Oh, this is too woo for corporate," right? Because
Mhm.
again, this was a belief of back in the day. I was definitely, some of this work was way too much like 10, 11 years ago. However, humanity's consciousness shift has massively shifted. This is why I say to people now, they're like, oh, I'm not going back to that world. I'm not going back to corporate. I'm kind of going, no, this medicine is needed in corporate. And what I see time and time again with entrepreneurs, working for Bain Consultancy, I want, that was like my top next goal was to be a consultant. I'm like, I want to work here, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be the leader by the time I'm 30, blah, blah, all typical what girl boss women did back in the time. That was the identity we developed. And I thought I was shit hot when I left corporate. Like, I'm amazing at marketing, digital transformation, went into entrepreneurship. Wow. It is like the mirror that gets held up when you go into being your own boss. Because when you work for someone else, your identity is built around that role. Like, and it's all external validation and it's within the system, but there's also a gazillion other people. You're a cog in the wheel. So like, you're out, somebody else is in there. So it doesn't matter what your shadow is or what your patterns are or any of this kind of stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, we just need to be delivering like the KPIs. And then you go out into your own. It's just like this humbling, whoa, I thought that I was going to go like this. And it's like, and this is where the work is. It's in, like, I'm like to anyone, get straight into subconscious and identity before you're looking at strategy. People, oh, but more strategy or more ad spend. I'm like, no, look at the ways that you're sabotaging your success. So for you guys are bringing this into consumers, you're bringing this into corporate. Like, what's the bigger vision? Well, I mean, it's a huge vision, raising humanity's consciousness, but in terms of like your go-to market, right? Let's make this the number one AI manifestation app.
So we've initially been focused more on the consumer side, but we were recently brought on a couple pilot programs for the enterprise side. So I think for roles where people are setting big goals for themselves, specifically sales, leadership, those kind of areas, SUPERconscious can be really, really helpful for people, as obviously, as we just heard with the anecdote that my dad shared. And then for the business side, we're also looking at different tools to be able to integrate with, let's say you have a big sales pitch coming up at 1 p.m., right? And to be able to integrate with CRM tools, Slack, to gather information on this sales pitch, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, who this customer is, and then to be able to deliver an activation in real time, let's say triggered 30 minutes before that, where you can hear the meeting going super well, hear the pitch, the exact result that you want, and really immersing yourself in that to prime yourself for whatever this meeting or pitch or whatever it may be within your business. And so looking at different ways to optimize within the workplace, I think kind of that's the next big step for us as a company, and getting into some of these more enterprise level companies to where then we can really scale out and create, company-wide transformation where people are really creating from this level of certainty rather than just going out and hoping. And, I think, my dad can share a lot because he's worked with a lot of these companies on this exact thing, but now creating a tool where it's scalable. So he doesn't have to go in and talk and train these people in person, but we can create a scalable product to where now people can deploy it across an entire organization and have it be really seamless. Yeah, Dad, I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest things that the challenges over the years, and probably you have too, is like you said, you arm people with the right thoughts and strategies, and then they go out, and what happens if they don't shift at that lower subconscious level? Their old patterns just reoccur, right? They take over. They say, "Oh, this isn't going to work. The new stuff's not going to work." Or the first little thing that someone's trying, they've got a little doubt in their mind. Oh yeah, it didn't work, right? And then they just go back to old patterns. And this is the beauty of, honestly, of AI and technology. I mean, when I read a book back in 2000, Tony Robbins had given me a book called The Age of Spiritual Machines by this futurist Ray Kurzweil, who's been very accurate. And he was talking about, he also wrote later, singularity's near, like we are going to be merging more with technology. And some people are very afraid of that. They go, technology is going to become smarter than us. It's going to take over. He wasn't afraid of it. He said, yeah, that could happen if things go a certain way, but also it could make us more spiritual. Like Tommy and I just spoke at an AI conference called the AI Surfer. And their concept is eventually we'll become 90-10. We'll become 90% AI. Not, and it freaked me out at first. We're not going to become that, but 10% human. But we're going to use AI to pretty much do all the things we don't really like to do, that take up our time, that take us away from our joy, and really, experiencing the amazing life that we can live. And then the 10% is going to be us doing really the stuff we love, and experiencing more of that. And I think our app is part of that merging with, humanity and technology, but in a healthy way where it does make you more spiritual. Because at the end of the day, really, we're not limited beings, right? We are these spirits in these bodies, in these suits. We take on this personality, this egoic personality, and we've lived that way for centuries and centuries and centuries. But now I think it's a time where we can evolve into understanding, yeah, we're here because it's a cool experience. We get to have these senses, but at the same time, we don't have to have all the things that we've grown accustomed to, having to hustle and work really hard, having to, beat somebody or have war, sickness, or things like that. Like, we don't need to keep creating that. And this is, maybe some people think this is a pipe dream, but I think we're getting closer to creating experiences where we get to have healthier lives, have more joyful lives, create things. They're talking about now with AI and robotics that you'll be able to create like a car, a Ferrari, with, this is people like Peter Diamandis, who sponsors the X Prize. He's a PhD engineer from MIT, and he is a medical doctor from Harvard. Like, this guy's one of the smartest guys on the planet. He's saying within 3 to 8 years, we'll be creating almost instantaneously things where wealth is not even going to be an issue. Like, we will have this abundance. But he said the thing that you will need to have is the ability to decide what you want to create. And that's what we're teaching people in our app right now. Because most people, you say, what do you want? They have no clue in those 7 life areas. They don't know what they want. Maybe they say one thing. And typically if they say one thing, it's just because they don't like where they're at and they think that thing is going to get them away from where they're at. But what do you really want to create? If you had no limits, what do you want to create? That's what our app does. And I can't wait for more people to experience it as we continue to launch it out.
Amazing. Well, I encourage everybody to download this app. Last question for you guys, because this app technically, right, if you look at some of the stats now, like the most common use for ChatGPT is therapy, which is actually deeply concerning for me to think ChatGPT, people feel more seen by an AI than they do by actual human beings.
Yeah.
They obviously just haven't hired me as their coach. I'm amazing at helping you see yourselves. But I mean, even say for this, I mean, I personalize tracks, like sitting one by one. Now it's like, have an AI for me. I mean, scale us up. Yeah, like empower people. I'm all here for like sovereignty, freedom, my values. But do you see tools like this eradicating the coaching industry, or is it being called to evolve further? Because one interesting point in your pitch deck, Tommy, you said like the average coaching transformation session is around like $200 to $300, which means it's not accessible for everyone. With the app, it's accessible to people because it's like $30 a month. But what do you think? The coaching industry, online course in the space, is getting a huge shakeup now, personal development. So where do you see AI coming in and changing it up?
Well, for me, I think human coaches are still always going to be available. I mean, I'm not available, but needed. Like, but for me to coach somebody, it's like $2,500 a session, right? So it's not like there's not a lot of people right now that have the funds to do that. And that's just one session, right? That's not like me coming in every day or you coming in every day and coaching them. So, but some people, that's still obviously something they're going to want to have. High level coaches like you will always be very successful. The thing about the app, though, is the app is something that in between those coaching sessions, they have, and it's helping that those things they learn in the sessions or that thing they want to create that came out of those sessions in a way that is consistent, because people have the best intentions leaving a coaching session. Okay, I'm going to think this way. I'm going to work on seeing, feeling, believing, shifting my identity. But then life starts to happen. They need to take the car in, or, their laundry. They need to do the laundry during the day, and they forget. And so this is what trips us up. And this is why the merging of technology and humanity can be so powerful. Technology can be that tool that creates that consistency we need to make the shift in who we are. And when we change who we are, we change what we see and what we can create.
Right? Yes. I love this. Well, guys, I wish you like the very, very bestest of luck with this project. I'm delighted to see, we're only like a couple of years, we're in the very beginning of the AI stage. So to see such a heart-led project that's here to like create amazingness for the world is just incredible. So I'm celebrating you, Tommy, for trusting yourself and your response as an emotional authority. Guys, I want everyone to put in the comments, take a vote on the polls. What do you think Tom and Tommy's human design energy type and authority is? And download the app. You can set up on a 3-day trial, and then you can choose either monthly or annual. Get it in your ears, listen to the tracks, get in your goals. If you want to get clear on what your goals are, book a human design session with me. Guys, anything else you want to impart before we say goodbye?
Thank you for preparing, and the questions were great, and it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. I can see why you're so successful, and thank you so much. Thank you for spreading the word on what we're doing, and we really do appreciate you, and anything we can do to help you, let us know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it, guys. And thank you, Tommy.
Awesome.
Lead the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, Elaine.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your journey in activating your higher self. I'm so grateful to every listener in this community and would love to know what you think. So drop into my DMs or send me a message and be a part of the expansion of our collective by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. And let's rise and flow together.